Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald. Mayor, Keith Parks. Deputy Mayor, Councillor, Michael Scott. West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans. Councillor Michael Scott. North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment. Councillor Sue Miller. Councillor Christie Thornton. South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner. Councillor Millie Livingston. And finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our council meeting of the 18th of May 2026. I should let you know that an audio recording of the meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes, and that will last the length of the open meeting, and the audio file will be available on council website. You'll also see that we've got people here from South Coast Television. They're making a video of our meeting, and that it also becomes available online. Just a bit of housekeeping. The council meeting is a public place, but there's no expectation of privacy, and there is unlikely to be any legal protection or other privilege attached to any statements made in this meeting. You're asked to place any phones or smart devices onto silent or turn them off. And we'd really like to welcome the members of the gallery. It's always good to see a lot of interest, and it's lovely to have you here. However, unless you're making a deputation and a presentation to council, you're advised that you have no option to address the council or comment on anything that's happening or not interrupt the proceedings. The people that are here in relation to the Cadell Street trees, just a reminder that the online survey is available on MySay, and a hard copy survey forms are available in the foyer, and they can be completed. But remind you that consultation closes at 5 p.m. on this Friday, the 22nd of May. Those unfamiliar with the venue, the toilets are directly through that way, behind you. And we just hope you enjoy your time at our meeting, and if you haven't been here before. I'd like to welcome our elected members. I'd like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald, our General Manager of Community, Stacey Basin, our General Manager Infrastructure, Alan Harvey, our General Manager Corporate, Tash Hunt, our Chief Financial Officer, Andrew Alderson, our Manager of Governance and Communications, Lachlan Miller, our Minutes Secretary, Tanya Cregan, and other staff who are here as required. Would you ask you if you're able to, could you please stand for the local government prayer and acknowledgement of country? Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberation for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Narrandjeri, the Paramount and the Gardner people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Thank you. Just remind elected members, council members, if you have a conflict of interest for the purposes of Part 4, Division 1, Subdivision 4 of the Local Government Act of 1999, in a matter which will be before the council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest of the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting. Members are also reminded they must deal with their conflict of interest in accordance with the relevant provisions of Subdivision 4 at the time the item arises for consideration. Councillor Miller has advised us she has a conflict of interest in relation to item 9.5. Councillor Oliver has advised he has a conflict of interest with item 4.3. Councillor Oliver also advised the conflict in item 10.2, and Councillor Coomans has advised that he has a conflict of interest with item 4.1 and I think 9.1 and 9.4. So they're the ones we are. Anybody else got any conflicts to advise us of? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I will just declare a general conflict of interest for item 8.1, which is a notice of motion, and that's due to my employment in this sector. But I do believe a reasonable and fair-minded person would not believe that my private interests are outweighing my public duty. So I intend to stay and participate in the debate and vote. Thank you.
So item 2 is the confirmation of minutes. 2.1 is the confirmation of the ordinary council meeting minutes of the 20th of April 2026. There's a recommendation that they be received as true and correct. It's moved Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Coomans. Any discussion in relation to those minutes? If not, I'll put them to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 2.2 is the minutes of the Section 41 Committee of the South Australian Wooden Boat Festival Committee of the 16th of April 2026. And there's a recommend those minutes be received and noted. Moved Councillor Livingston. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any questions or comments in relation to those minutes? Councillor Miller.
Just one question, Your Worship. Is it correct that the Wooden Boat Festival Committee now meets monthly? Is that, I was just looking at their next meeting schedule.
Thank you, through the chair. No, I don't believe they meet monthly. I'd have to check what the terms of reference say, but they meet as required in the lead up to the festival and post. So I'd have to take that on notice to look at what the terms of reference say, but we're not meeting every month.
Is there any other discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I'll put them to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2.3 is the minutes of the Section 41 Climate Emergency and Environment Advisory Committee of the 27th of April 2026, and there's a recommendation that those minutes be received and noted. Just move Councillor Livingston. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Any discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2.4 is the minutes of the Southern Communities Transport Scheme Advisory Committee of the 15th of April 2026, and there's a recommendation that those minutes be received and noted. Moved Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to those minutes? I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 3 is adjourned debate. There is none. Item 4 is presentations and deputations. 4.1 is a deputation from the Goolwa Rowing Club regarding landowners' consent. We have Simon Burr and David England here to speak to us. So welcome, Simon and David. Mr. Coomans.
Yes, on the screen, Mayor Parks, I have a material conflict of interest because I'm a member of the Fleurieu Regional Assessment Panel, which will be assessing the building and planning parts. I'll leave the room.
Simon and David, do you need more than 5 minutes?
No.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Parks and councillors. Thank you all for the opportunity to address council. As the Mayor has stated, my name is Simon Burr, President of the Goolwa Rowing Club, and with me tonight is David England, our Treasurer. We are here with a clear, practical request to amend our lease at Bristow Smith Reserve by removing clause 8.3.3, the requirement to build a deck, as well as providing the necessary landowner's consent so we can move forward with planning approvals and deliver a long overdue, fit-for-purpose rowing facility here at Goolwa. To give that request some context, for more than 20 years the Goolwa Rowing Club has been working toward a permanent home base. We're now close. A remaining barrier is clause 8.3.3 of our lease agreement, which requires our development of the site to include a deck in our design to access the water from the facility. In practice, rowing at this site does not require a deck. We can safely launch from the shoreline. So this clause creates a major cost and approvals hurdle without improving safety or outcomes. I'd like to briefly outline what Council and the community gain by supporting our request. We need this lease amendment and landowners' consent so we can proceed to planning and development approvals and deliver clear community benefits, which include building the first and only purpose-built water-adjacent rowing shed facility on the Fleurieu, providing a safe, non-contact sport for young and older people across the region, supporting school programs and creating clear participation pathways for local students, and lifting the Goolwa region's profile through regattas, social rows, tour rows and visiting crews, bringing visitors and local spending. At its core, our need is simple: secure boat storage at the water's edge. Right now, we store and move long heavy craft from a shed some 300 metres from the water, which is very time consuming and creates considerable manual handling risks and limits who can participate. Our proposal for Bristow Smith Reserve is low impact, and if the lease is amended, we can launch safely from the existing grass shoreline once we complete the development. We see this as a positive addition to the Bristow Smith Reserve precinct. Rowing is a quiet, non-contact and low impact, and the proposed facility would be a modest, attractive and well-managed community asset, supporting healthy activity on the water without changing how the public uses the reserve. We believe it would actually enhance both the aesthetics and use of the reserve by the community. The deck required in the current lease could stop this project entirely because it adds about $700,000 to the cost with no operational benefit. It is not usable for many members and adds avoidable access risk. It introduces new environmental approvals, ongoing maintenance and long-term liability. And a proven alternative already exists, the current grassed area where we can create a launch from the water's edge. For 26 years, we have safely launched from the water's edge on High Marsh Island and the lower lakes. The problem is what happens before we even reach the water. Without a dedicated rowing shed facility, boats must be loaded, trailered, unloaded and carried significant distances. This adds risk, limits participation, and it has made it impossible for us to include junior rowers and programs with local schools. For comparison, decks and pontoons are generally designed for deep water launches. They are costly to build and maintain and are not necessary for rowing at this site. In summary, removing the deck requirement does not reduce public access, safety or amenity. We can create a launch from the existing shoreline to launch as we do at our current location. What it does is remove an unnecessary cost and approvals barrier so the development can proceed through the normal planning pathways. So tonight we are asking Council to 1, amend the current lease by removing clause 8.3.3 and 2, provide landowners' consent so we can proceed to planning and development approvals. Alexandrina Council and the wider community benefit by supporting Goolwa Rowing Club to establish a permanent home so more residents can access rowing socially or competitively from school age through to older adults. Our average age at present is 60 years, highlighting we are providing a much needed avenue for healthy ageing. It is a proven, low impact sport that builds fitness, connection and community pride while remaining gentle on the environment. We appreciate your consideration and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Simon. Anyone got any questions? Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. With your recent public notification with the development assessment, I'd be keen to know of the people that opposed it at that time, how many actually mentioned the deck? Was that mentioned at all?
I'd have to check the accuracy on this comment, but I think none.
Any other
David
questions?
says he doesn't recall any either.
Anybody else got any questions? No. Thank you, David and Simon. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor.
So 4.2 is a deputation from Meredith Taylor and Margaret Castle regarding the future planning for trees on Cadell Street. So you're here. Would you need more than do you need more than 5 minutes?
Yes, thank you.
So, shame, but everybody is happy to do that? If we can all do it together, it would make my life a lot easier. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. So that's okay. I'll give you a little dingle on the bell when you've got a minute to go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for letting me talk. I'm going to speak very, very briefly about one small aspect of this, and that's the community consultation side of this process. I was really keen to contribute this, so I jumped online, and when I got into the survey, I realised that I had so many questions about what was being asked for me to decide that I couldn't really form a reasoned view. I couldn't say yes, no, or maybe, because I didn't understand really what the issues were. I thought I must have missed something, so I had a good look around the council website and tried to find what I might not have seen, but I couldn't find anything else. And I kind of ended up thinking that the best I could do was to give a sort of retain the status quo approach, because I had so many questions I needed to know, and I couldn't get slides up today due to a misunderstanding, but very briefly, I'll just whip through these. I wanted to know, was the tree suitable for the conditions now and in the future? What difference would it make to shade and temperature if the trees were removed? How much rubbish did they create? What did it cost to manage them? How much would it cost to take them down? How much did it cost to keep them going? I had a whole pile of questions. So there was what species of trees would be better? What species of trees wouldn't attract corellas, probably plastic ones? What was the water use of these trees and other trees? What were the alternatives to removal? Was it just some trees that needed attention or all of them? So, I mean, I sort of pulled it all together and thought, well, I don't really know. I can't answer this because I don't know. And I thought about that after that, and I thought that the trouble is that community consultations is fantastic, but if you don't have enough information to form a reasoned view, you almost end up just making a gut reaction to what you're being asked, and it's not based on a lot of information. And I thought, oh, that's not really all that useful. I mean, I would be concerned if council was basing parts of decisions on surveys that people like me had sort of filled in but didn't really know what we were talking about. So I had a very strong sense that there was so much hanging on this. It was such an important issue for the future and for the amenity of the street and for nature that we really needed more information to make a decision about that. And I guess what I also thought was that I thought it was a real opportunity to have sort of community involvement in looking at options, because there are lots of options. The survey presented 6, but I've come up with a number of other ones that could be options, big ones, little ones, different ones that might fit in different places. They're all very contextual, and I felt that the opportunity to participate in that discussion actually wasn't encouraged or enabled through that consultation process. So I guess my feeling, my message I wanted to say to all of you as someone who genuinely tried to fill this in an intelligent way was that it's really not fair to ask people to make a decision about something they don't have enough information to understand what they're deciding about. And I think it also kind of cuts out a bit of opportunity for sort of positive community inputs on different levels and in a more nuanced way. That was all I really wanted to say. Meredith is going to talk in much more detail about some of the questions I've raised, but I just wanted to give you the feedback that this could, I think, be a much more vibrant way of communicating with the community on big issues like this. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Thank you, Mayor and councillors and audience, for the opportunity to speak this evening. As you can see from the slide, I've got a few slides I'm going to try and keep in sync with what I'm saying, hopefully. We're speaking for the trees this evening. That tiny little figure there is me standing next to that tree, which is one of those massive old gums in Ashbourne. So, yes, to start, trees are multifunctional, high-value community assets, and in a warming world, they're an essential urban and particularly green infrastructure and deliver increasingly valuable ecological services. They're also an integral component to our ever-depleting biodiversity. Nature should not be seen as just a decoration, but an important urban infrastructure, just like roads, drainage and electricity, and hence it should be treated as such and cared for and maintained. However, to do this, we need the active support and commitment of the community leaders and decision makers such as yourselves. The future of the Cadell Street trees is a big issue. It's about ensuring the future of a streetscape that will be fit for our warming world. Planning for a more diverse and biodiverse streetscape needs careful thought, planning and consultation and should not be rushed. The current MySay, as Margaret has just pointed out, lacks some of that important background information that we need to make an informed response. That being said, I'd like to remind us all of what trees actually do, and I'm sure most of you know most of this, but I'll press on, and why we cannot afford to lose our magnificent Cadell Street trees. Global warming. Projected global mean surface temperatures have been predicted to rise due to carbon emissions by between 2 to 5 degrees centigrade. Climate change has already made air temperature in Australia 1.5 degrees centigrade hotter than in 1910 when records began. This is of course linked to increased emissions of greenhouse gases. We can anticipate more frequent and intense heat waves and droughts and bushfires. As South Australians, we are very well aware of these impacts, having just experienced a significant drought and multiple bushfires. As with all other levels of government, councils are under increasing pressure to help improve the community's resilience against these projected rises in temperature, and a significant component of that resilience is our trees. Alexandrina is already vulnerable. We have an overall canopy cover of 17%. Arguably, Ashbourne, with 49%, has bumped up this figure. With Goolwa, we have a canopy cover of 14.8%, and only 23.6% of that cover is on council land. The desired and now generally accepted target is 30%, so we have a long way to go. Where are we? Cadell Street is lined by 52 mature ficus. They are Ficus macrocarpa hilii. They're at least 30 years old and, needless to say, are much loved by our community. They can live up to 100 years in good sites. They're from the east coast of Australia where there's a lot more rain. We have been advised that they could grow marginally taller, and their canopies do spread with age, which can be easily managed by pruning. Thank you. There are 34 examples of their trees, used as street trees, on TreeNet's database from the Sunshine Coast to Perth and Cairns to Goolwa. Council itself says that these trees are in good health and structural condition, and further, Council does not consider these trees to be unsuitable. According to Council, the concerns that have been raised relate to tree roots impacting on the pavement, leaf litter and delivery trucks being impacted by branches. We have walked the length of Cadell Street several times over the last 12 months. I agree that there are some pavement issues, but these are really very minimal and can be managed by root pruning. Leaf litter surely can be managed by a regular sweeping program, and delivery trucks can park elsewhere, or Council could prune the offending branches. Surely these issues are manageable and could be or should have been actively managed by Council, particularly in a main street. Council's own tree management strategy, point 6, states that risk management and resource availability. It says appropriate resources will be allocated to tree planting and management. Last year we inspected these trees with Tim Johnson, who's a director from TreeNet. TreeNet is the Tree and Roadway Experimental and Educational Network, which collaborates with and advises many councils across South Australia and Australia. And I know that council have attended their symposiums and have access to the research and advisory work. Where are we? TreeNet supports and promotes ongoing research and education that allow mature trees to be retained without compromising the needs of built assets. Research in this area has advanced significantly in the last decade. Roads, verges, footpaths and trees can live together. And yes, now trees have a dollar value. As with many other assets, many councils are putting a monetary value on their trees. Using the City of Melbourne's tree evaluation process, TreeNet has assessed the value of each of these trees at an average of $26,940. This is calculated using the circumference at chest height base value of the tree, by its species, by the aesthetics, by its locality and condition. So Council has a tree asset in Cadell Street of approximately $1.3 million based on that assessment. Carbon capture. So what do these trees do? Trees are the basis of almost all life on Earth. They absorb and store carbon, and while doing so, need a couple more minutes, produce oxygen for other organisms to breathe, including ourselves, and the carbon sequestration rate increases as trees age. The environmental and social value of mature trees are irreplaceable. They spread a cooling shade canopy and over road surfaces and other hard surfaces such as footpaths and paving. As little as 20% shade can effectively reduce ambient temperature by at least 3 to 5 degrees and reduce the risk of UV radiation exposure by up to 75%. Trees absorb dust and pollutants, thus significantly improving air quality. Trees intercept rainfall, increase filtration, and convey much of what is retained back into the atmosphere, a process known as transpiration. Harvesting stormwater into tree roots, which many councils are now doing, also increases hydration, photosynthesis, transpiration, and hence the healthy growth of trees. Importantly, it can also assist in root management. These trees provide a unique entry in Goolwa, not just for the local community, but they are especially important if you're wanting to attract tourists, as Goolwa does. Goolwa prides itself on its history, its wharf, the cockle trains, the river boats and paddle steamers. The Great Southern Ocean, the beaches, the river and the Coorong are major assets and bring tourists and holiday makers. Goolwa's main street is a gateway to these attractions. It should be a gateway that is welcoming, a green canopy which enhances and frames the street and its shops, which invites people to stay and linger and to walk. Who would want to spend time on a hot, treeless street? Sorry, I've just skipped that slide somehow. Can you imagine Harndorf, Stirling, Hutt Street without their trees, or the magnificent avenues of the Champs-Élysées in Paris and the Ramblas in Barcelona? So I've got my slide slightly out of sync, but never mind.
Meredith, we've got about, we're over time, but another
Okay,
minute.
one more minute,
If you could sum up.
Relationship between health and wellbeing in nature is very well and actively researched. Patients in hospitals heal faster, school students learn better. Spending time in nature, in the bush, in parks and tree streets increases our dopamine, improves our mood, lowers blood pressure and reduces mortality rate. It also helps build a sense of community because people linger beneath trees. These trees are healthy, they're not diseased. So that's just a quick shot of Harndorf with its beautiful trees. Loss of biodiversity, which is the baseline, what it used to be like and what we've got used to now. So as I was saying, these trees are healthy, they are not diseased, they have an estimated life of more than 50 years. Corellas are a problem, but removing trees is not likely to reduce that impact. Most importantly, it will take at least 20 to 30 years to replace this canopy if ever. It will completely undermine the Council's heat mapping and canopy goals and be contrary to its numerous policy documents such as Vision 2040, the Environmental Action Plan, the Climate Emergency Action Plan and its greening strategy. Council really needs to lead by example, and how can the community be asked to take greening seriously when Council maybe appears not to? There is no need to remove these trees. More now than ever before, we have the information, the technology, all is readily available to Council.
We really have to stop. Well,
I just want to show the last slide. And it's from the Joni Mitchell song, Big Yellow Taxi. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? And the bottom image is what AI produces when you take the trees out of the street. Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, Meredith and Margaret. Are there any questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you for your presentation, both of you. And it's great to see so many people here who love trees, particularly the trees in Cadell Street. I'd like to ask Margaret a question, if I can.
Yes.
You talked about consultation with the community and how important that is, and I think we already realise that. And this is a tricky, very tricky situation. So how would you do your community consult?
I couldn't possibly answer that just off the spot like that. I have ideas and have engaged in community consultation in the past that might look different to a survey. I'm in favour of things like a meeting, perhaps, where anyone could speak, or a little working group. I mean, you've had consultation, I think, in the past down here with people from Adelaide Uni on sea level rise, and they were very extensive and presumably quite expensive. So I think there's a whole range of different ways to communicate that might vary depending on the context of what you're communicating about. But I couldn't say now what would be necessary for something like this and efficient, but I do think the opportunity for people to speak face to face, to feel heard with ideas, to ask questions, needn't be an enormous thing to do, but might be really valuable. Other than that, I'm sure there are lots of other good ideas from within the council that would deal with that or outside, but I can't be more specific just on the spot like this, other than to say there are many options.
Do we have any other questions? Councillor Coomans.
Thank you to you two for your presentations. Given the issues with tree roots and issues with cars being damaged and of course the problem with the corellas, one of the suggestions is that rather than cut them all down, is to cut every third, every fourth, and do that over a period of time, and then replace those that have been cut down with a more suitable species. Well, what's the general thoughts on that?
Well, I can't give an opinion on that because I have no information about what a more suitable species would be. And I wouldn't be comfortable agreeing with that until I knew what was meant by a more suitable species. I think that was one of the problems I had with the consultation. There may well be compelling reasons to do something about this, other than the obvious management cutting them down or putting in root guards. But I can't answer that because I have no information about that. And I guess that was what I was concerned about, that if I'd had that information, I might have felt more comfortable saying, yeah, oh, that seems like a reasonable approach, but I just couldn't answer that like that. Did you want to speak to that?
Can I just add, because I've had a few conversations with Tim Johnson from TreeNet, and could I just add that I've had a few conversations with Tim Johnson, one of the directors at TreeNet, and there's masses of information on their website. They do consultations with councils across Australia and South Australia all the time on these issues. And I would really recommend, if council hasn't already, that they get some advice from an organisation like TreeNet, who research continually in this area. They've done work for the City of Unley, the City of Onkaparinga, councils in Western Australia, councils all over the place on similar sorts of issues. And they would be, I think, the most appropriate organisation to advise. I know council has its own internal expertise as well, but I do think it's hard to ask people who don't have that expertise, you know, what would we recommend?
Thank you, Meredith. We are truly out of time. So thanks for your presentation and thank you for coming here this evening. And we do understand what you're talking about, and we do understand you need the information. Thank you. So 4.3 is a deputation from Richard Owen regarding the toilets at Sugar Beach. So welcome, Richard. Councillor Oliver.
I'd like to declare a material conflict of interest due to my private and business interests. Thank you, and I'll leave the room.
Richard, do you need more than 5 minutes?
I might.
We'll give you the 10. So everybody happy with in favour of that? More time? Yes, so that's okay. So if you go past, when you get to 9 minutes, I'll give you a ring. You've got a minute to go. Okay,
sure.
Thanks.
Mayor Parkes, I'd like to thank you for giving me permission to come and speak to council about this issue. I just want to, I suppose, establish my own credibility. I've lived for 46 years at the Murray Mouth. This year, some of you will come to our celebration. I'm also the manager of the revegetation program on Hindmarsh Island, which we're celebrating on June the 5th, having planted 750,000 plants since 2001. So I know a lot about that area, the area concerned. I've presented before to council on this issue of the toilets, and I've got to say that it gets a bit frustrating at times. I presented to full council 4 or 5 years ago. about the need for toilets and about the need to treat the Murray Mouth as the icon site that it is. I consider the Murray Mouth is a mess except for the revegetation we've been doing for years. At the last presentation I made, rubbish bins came back to the mouth. There were no rubbish bins there. It's an overlooked area, and yet it's the most significant river in this country. People come from all over Australia and interstate here because of the environmental significance of the place. But I want to address the toilet issue because I think that the council's proposal about solving the toilet problem is misguided. It's my belief that there should be 2 toilets at the mouth, one at the lookout. 10 times the number of people go to the lookout than go to the cafe. And yet the location for the toilet, the one toilet you guys are putting in, is near the cafe. It just doesn't make sense. We are proposing that the toilets be in the vegetation on the other side of the road, where they can be hidden to some extent. And a simple design like the ones over by the jet skis near the barrage would be quite a simple option and not particularly expensive. So I would like you to reconsider what you're doing, and if you're not interested in reconsidering it, at least to come and talk to some of the people who've been concerned about these issues for a long time. We weren't consulted about this. The council knows I've been on about this for years. So I'm hoping when you discuss what I'm suggesting, that you take a step back and talk to some of the people who are concerned and have got alternatives which we believe are environmentally much better, visually much better than having the toilet on the edge of the car park. The car park that is now being gradually covered in sand because of the sand that's rising in the mouth. These factors don't seem to me to have been considered. We have a memorial in that area where the toilet's going to be to the Queen's Jubilee that we put in. That whole area has been covered by sand now because of the sand build-up in the mouth and the lack of flows down the river. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions of Richard? No, thank you very much for your time, Richard. So 4.4 is a deputation from Mr. Councillor Oliver's got to come back, sorry. So 4.4 is a deputation from Mr. Terry Scolari regarding the investigation into the aggregation of administration functions within regional councils. Welcome, Tony. Terry, do you need more than 5 minutes?
No, about 4.5 minutes should do it.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, thank you, councillors. My name is Terry Scolari. I'm a resident of Strathalbyn, a ratepayer and also a business owner of Strath. This deputation has been done for transparency reasons as an identical motion will be put towards the Yankalilla meeting tomorrow night and also the Victor Harbour Council meeting next Monday night, identical to the one going tonight. We need to remember this motion tonight is only asking Council Admin to discuss and provide advice on the scope needed in the independent report to be commissioned. Commissioning the external report and how it will be paid for will be decided at a future council meeting, not the one tonight. That was about all I was going to say at this deputation. However, the agenda that came out for tonight contained an extensive admin note from the Manager of Governance and Communications. These comments to me were confusing and in the main irrelevant as they don't speak to the motion being put tonight. The examples of collaboration provided do not relate to back office admin costs, i.e. fleet, procurement, accounts, HRIR, payroll and IT. All the examples relate to ratepayer services, which are outside the scope of this motion. Admin comments then brought up something called the Fleurieu Futures Report, Stage 1 and 2, from some 14 years ago. A Google search of the Fleurieu Futures Report reveals that it comprised of a 7-point research plan by Yank, Victor and Alex councils that they looked into back in 2012. Only one category, and that was governance, of the 7, touches on anything to do with this motion tonight about the aggregation of the admin services. I did find the Fleurieu Futures Update Report that was included in the board papers or the council papers of the November 2020 Victor Harbour Council meeting. I read this report, and from reading this, no formal outcome was reached and nothing mentions the aggregation possibilities of back office functions such as the fleet procurement, accounts, HRIR, payroll and IT. The admin comments then go on to say in their conclusion, importantly, the underlying commitment to collaboration and shared services or resource opportunities has continued and is reflected in the broad range of initiatives identified above in the admin comments. The motion effectively calls for a repeat and a significant expansion of the work performed as part of the Fleurieu Futures. From my investigations, the Fleurieu Futures project was put in the bottom drawer in 2020. The initiatives referred to above in the admin comments, as stated earlier, do not relate to this motion, and this motion is aggregation of back office services. And therefore there is no repeat of previous work undertaken in the Fleurieu Futures study. With the rate of change occurring in workplace operations and technology being greater than it's ever been, any study done more than 2 to 3 years ago is old and would be considered out of date. Ratepayer services costs and council back office costs are 2 distinct separate cost centres and should be treated as such. The last paragraph of the admin comments then suggests that this motion be deferred until after the local government elections, putting it back again. This again is a deflection away from the motion. It is understood that internal job protection must be a natural thought by council staff when looking at this aggregation of back office costs, and may be part of the reason for this continual deflection by council executives when asked at looking at savings in their own house, but they deflect to examples that are done in the ratepayer services. As stated earlier, this motion tonight is only asking council admin to discuss and provide advice on the scope needed in the report to be commissioned. Commissioning the independent report will be decided at a later future council meeting. Council can't keep on asking ratepayers for more money if they aren't prepared to look at savings behind their own front door. Therefore, let's not find a way to delay or defer this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions of Terry? Councillor Oliver.
Terry, thank you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to look at this, and I also recognise your experience in the credit union industry and other industries in working exactly with this, and you've been very successful. Yeah. So thank you. I do wonder, I'm not sure whether the benefits could actually be that significant. Like, these aren't ginormous functions. So I would like to understand more before committing too many resources. What are the potential benefits that we think that we could get? I also want to highlight too that I'm worried about the risk of inefficiency, and also what happens if we lose control of some of these core functions. The HR function is pretty important. I don't want to be served up. I'm sure you don't want to be served up just anyone. You want to be directly in control of this process. So there are 3 aspects that when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about, I need to understand more about. And also too, I think I need to understand more about the Fleurieu Futures report. Before these were just distributed, I haven't had the opportunity to read them before. Yeah. They've been in confidence. And I think I would welcome the opportunity for there to be a workshop to go through all that, to have a surfacing and an understanding or a sharing of the information. And then maybe that could deal with those 3 questions that I've got. So I'm not sure that if I can commit to what you're asking for today without those 3 questions being answered.
I find what you're asking is actually what this motion is asking for. So you'll find that this motion is asking for the advice from council, and also to speak to Victor and Yank, because this is a 3-way motion that has to be agreed by the three councils to look at the scope needed, and that defines what will be in the report. So therefore, when the scope is found out, looked at by admin, and they can use all this information they already know, they then come back to the council meeting and say, okay, in our opinion, if we're going to go and seek an aggregation model of any sort, we need an independent report. We reckon the independent report should ask for the following, because that's what the scope work will do. They'll have costed it, what it's going to cost. They'll have then worked out, because they're negotiating with Victor and Yank as well about whose share is, whose share of the thing. So I think that what you're asking actually is the motion tonight, because it's all about asking admin to come back with what we should be asking, an independent report. And you're right with, my background in aggregation in the financial sector for 30 years, we had, and as you know, we had lots of places where there was 40 financial businesses, procurement, back office, HR, industrial relations. We could not have survived without all the cost saving that gave us. So whether it's going to give us any money or a cost saving, it's not merging, this is just aggregation. But you've got to put this little bit of work in to find out, because, we're being asked as ratepayers to cough up more money all the time. The only way you're going to make more money in business is you increase your income or you decrease your expenses. So all we're saying here is, hey, well, let's look inside the council house and see whether we can find any savings.
Yeah. Thanks, Terry. Any further questions? No, so thank you very much, Terry. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Item 5 is petitions. 5.1 is a petition requesting council retain the Strathalbyn Visitor Information Centre at its current location, and there is a recommendation there before you. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you're moving it?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Just to receive it, thank you.
Are you speaking to it? There's a seconder, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? Not. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 6 is questions with notice. There are none. Item 7 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. My question relates to township greening and the bush backyards to bush. I haven't got that right, but I was contacted by the Strathalbyn Garden Club during the week, who has over 100 members, and their question was, will they be included in any township greening initiatives and contacted by council to have some contact, because there's over 100 members in that group, and it would be great if they could have some kind of engagement with council over our township greening approach.
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Miller. The draft township greening strategy is actually a shared strategy that comes across both community and infrastructure, both Stacey and myself. So I'm speaking on behalf of both of us. In terms of the question, volunteer involvement is something that is actually in our continual improvement programme. So we'll be looking quite carefully at how we can engage further and more deeply into the community with regards to volunteers and activation of those hands, those hours, that time. So I would say that we would look to garner that support from the community, but it'll be done in a considered and structured way, and in such a way that we can actually manage it appropriately, resource it, make sure that it's safe, and we do the appropriate checks.
Are there any further questions, Councillor Scott?
Just approximately, how much money do we collect on behalf of the government for the Hills Fleurieu Landscape Board? Is there an approximate amount that anyone knows of?
Through the Mayor, $1.3 million. $1.3 million.
Are there any further questions? No? So thanks very much. We'll move to item 8, which is notice of motions. 8.1 is a motion from Councillor Thornton. I gather you wish to move that and speak to it? Sorry, what's that?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to, as I did earlier in the meeting, I'm out of a degree of caution declaring a general conflict of interest due to my employment in the local government sector. But I do believe that a reasonable and fair-minded person wouldn't believe that my private interests are outweighing my public duty. And I intend to stay in the room and participate in the debate. Thank you.
So, Councillor Thornton, you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I think it was the deputation pretty well laid it all out, so I'm just going to leave it to my fellow council members to see what they would like to do. I think it's a good thing for us to look at, even if we're almost coming to the end of our term. It's something that we can start and kind of get a roll on for the next term of council.
So, do we have a seconder? Councillor Maidman, you wish to speak?
As it's all been said by Mr. Scolari, he's taken a great deal of effort to respond to the comments by administration, which has thrown up the Fleurieu Futures report. And although the data collection may be out of date, at least it provides a template going forward that we can just fill in all the relevant new information. And even though we don't have money in our budget for 26-27, I think the conversation with the other councils should start presently, and it can flow into the next financial year where money could be set aside for a scoping project. So I would certainly keen to explore the options here on savings in the back office.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
This is a subject that's fairly near and dear to my heart, because I observe as the years roll by, and long before my generation came on board, we had little councils everywhere. In fact, I was told of one the other side of Strathalbyn that I don't even remember the name of, but there were little councils everywhere. Up till relatively recently, we had the Corporation of Victor Harbour and the District Council of Encounter Bay. And they each had their own administration. But what I notice is that there's a fear of change, and some people are very resistant to exploring or to even contemplating living in a different situation. And yet we've got technology now that we are supposed to be embracing, and if we embrace it, there are savings to be made, and that's already been proven. And we've already had a round about 25 years ago of amalgamations, and I cite I believe that, for instance, the Wakefield Regional Council is made up of about 5 councils. Coorong is made up of several, and there's no reason why it should stop there. And it strikes me as being worthy of close investigation as to the merits of having a Fleurieu Regional Council. We are an identified area and with common interests, and it just, while I see what we're trying to do here, But everything we've done so far, to me, is we're missing one of the main areas. We've got 3 CEOs straight away, with all due respects to ours. And associated, everybody's got senior staff. I see it with an amalgamation, you would still have your senior staff. You would have key senior staff and save on that, but you would pick up with supervisory staff that would be in a sector. So you'd have obviously a supervisor probably for the Yankalilla sector and one for Victor, that sort of thing. So you'd probably pick up with lower paid staff and drop out. We've got, is it 27 councillors for the Fleurieu Peninsula? 26, is it? Well, you know, you probably do it with a dozen. So, you know, with a bit of rejigging of the whole thing. Anyway, but it frustrates me a little that we might only be doing part of it. I think if you're going to do it, you do the whole thing, research it, and get the facts, and then decide whether you're going to do it or not. I question, as I say, I think with doing the collaboration that we're doing now is great, but we're only half doing it, and you're not getting the full savings that you potentially get from a full amalgamation. But we all need, me included, more facts about the real value of it before we actually do it. But it just seems a bit odd to me that we have 3 very senior staff and 26 councillors for an area that isn't overly large. And we're living in a world where there's technology that helps you overcome all that communication and that sort of thing. So, I mean, you can take a picture of the Fleurieu Peninsula from the air. When the council started 150 years ago, there weren't even planes or anything to do that. So technology's moved on. But anyway, that's my thought on it. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to propose a very slight addition, which incorporates my comments from earlier. In the second point, on the second line, after the word merits, I'd like to insert the words risks and costs, so we understand the full proposition.
So is the mover happy with that, Councillor Thornton? Councillor Maiden? Yep, that's okay. And you wish to talk to it? You're talking or not?
Oh, that's great, thank you.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little, because we started about talking about aggregating business units within the 3 councils, which makes a lot of sense. And then suddenly we're talking about merging. I think the first step is to talk about the aggregation, see what the advantages, the costs and things like that are. And, you know, there's already elements that are combined now from the various councils, like the assessment panel is now, you know, represents the 3 councils. The FRWA represents 4. The Aquatic Centre represents 2. And you know, there's all of those things that are happening at the moment, and they're sort of, in a sense, combined business units. So I think that's a good start to see what we can do. There's other areas like IT that could be. And then the next major steps would then be to consider, is it really worth having 1 main body and 3 heads, which is what we'd finish up with. And the 3 heads are 3 mayors, 26 elected members or council members, 3 CEOs, probably 6 to 9 general managers, and then the on costs associated with that. So if you look down the rabbit warren a bit further, you'd see that there's obviously going to be some cost savings, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. This is going to take years and years, but I think it's worthy of a start. There was something looked at some years back about merging various business units of the councils, and that's been working very well. I'd certainly like to explore that a lot further, because it seems to me there's going to be cost savings by doing that. And, you know, it might mean things like, if it does eventually finish up as one large council, and I've got to say, I was part of the Onkaparinga when it merged Noarlunga, Willunga and Happy Valley, and that resulted in a very, very good council. Not sure it's so great at the moment, but it certainly was a great council, and it means that when you've got projects to do, it becomes a mere pittance in terms of financials for something like that. Whereas the same for smaller councils becomes a significant part of their cost structure. So I fully support it, and I commend Councillor Thornton for bringing it to the chamber for us to look at. So I fully support it.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I am just going to focus on the question that's before us, which is the scope about back-end operations. And I'm going to just speak on a couple of points, which is collaboration versus cost recovery of a fee-for-service model and a value proposition approach, which is what I think this scope would be looking at. I don't think we're talking about a representation review here or amalgamations. The reference to a Fleurieu Futures report was incredibly interesting, and I read it, and it was pretty interesting. But I'm going to limit my discussion and my debate to what is before us here. You know, there is a difference between a transparent collaboration via paid memberships and being constituent councils of Section 43 subsidiaries that have a charter, and memberships of associations like the Regional Development Australia or the LGA. They provide an annual report or a value proposition statement. When you compare that to shared services, which is what we are engaged in at the moment, that sits within the administration, as it rightly should, that is in effect a fee for service that assists our neighbouring councils. But I wish to focus on what our role is as opposed to what the CEO's role is. And our role is to set the strategic direction for the council and keep our resources under control to achieve that strategic direction. So an example is that we are providing planning and strategic advice to other councils for a fee, and we're helping Yankalilla prepare their local area plan. But our rural areas accommodation review is delayed because of our capacity within our own resources. And I'm interested to understand how those sorts of decisions are being made when are we focusing on providing support at a fee for what we can recover, or the services that we're employing our own people to provide to our own ratepayers. And I'm really mindful, you know, I'm all for collaboration and support. It is one of the things in local government that is done exceptionally well. There is this collaborative spirit. But I would like to see more of a value proposition for our residents and ratepayers for us to continue shared service arrangements. Alexandrina is the largest council of the three by square kilometres in residents and electors. We're more than double the size of Yankalilla and 5 times the size of Victor, if my numbers are right. At what point is our doing the heavy lifting impacting on our own service delivery? Should these services that we offer be included in our fees and charges register, because we do charge these other councils for these services? So I am going to support this because I think it's really important that we look at the scope of such an approach and how we would go about that. But what I'm looking for is a bit of a value proposition. I can see the benefits to Victor Harbour and District Council of Yankalilla with what was in the officer's commentary about what we provide to those councils in the services area. But I'm just wondering, we need to be mindful that there's huge amount of growth coming to the Fleurieu. A lot of it's in Victor and down that spine, and I just don't want to see our residents on the back burner because we're focusing our planning services and all of those services on other councils at a fee. I think I do commend Councillor Thornton for putting this forward. I think it's a conversation we have to have, but I also believe it's the domain of the CEOs to actually determine, because that's an administrative function, as long as we're being able to deliver our strategic plan, then that's my priority. But I am all for collaboration and, of course, cost savings if we can aggregate some of these services. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. And I echo quite a lot of what Councillor Miller was saying, that I do respect that it is the CEO's function operationally. What I'm interested in is exploring savings and efficiencies, opportunities. Not quite sure that this motion completely covers all of that, but nonetheless am supportive. But I would also be interested in being briefed, and this chamber being briefed on the Fleurieu Futures report, and setting out where the efficiencies are already happening and are successful. Thanks.
Is there any further discussion? Before you have your right to reply, I do support Councillor Thornton's intent and that we look at it. Fleurieu Futures just will go back to the other two councils to talk about bringing it out of competence, or whether we bring it here. Fleurieu Futures was a good report done over 2 sessions. It was funded by the state government and the LGA through a grant and the 3 councils, and it looked at every aspect of local government, and we were picked as a little target group. It certainly didn't support amalgamation. It did support the use of shared services and looking at costings. If you look at our area, how much it's grown since the Fleurieu Futures report was done alone, and then look at the absentee home ownership, which has now become more than half of them now live here permanently because they've got older and they've retired. So you have to look at that, and then you look at the efforts our current executive team have made in 18 months, what they've pulled out of costs and debt in the budget, which you'll look at again tonight to go out for consultation. When I joined this council in 2010, there was a CEO, a deputy CEO, and there were 7 general managers. We now have 3 and 1 CEO and a CFO. So you tell me we haven't done an enormous job on pulling back over the years, while the expectations on council have been going through the roof. People also forget the fact the federal government withdrew half of our funding, and they've never given us it back. We're now under 4% of gross tax income. It used to be 10%. So that's millions and millions of dollars that we no longer get, that our ratepayers have to cough up so that we can give them the services that they should be getting. So, you know, we're already doing a lot of hard work on cost savings and looking at it, but you can't do it all overnight. We have an ongoing process of looking at everything. We're working on it all the time. Fleet services, we like just about every council in the state uses local government procurement, and there are a lot of benefits from that. But there are some times when we can do better locally, which is where our team look at it and work out the best ways. So we do it, and we do work very closely with the other councils and other councils within our area. So, but it's certainly, it's not a bad time to go back and have another look. It was a very, very expensive report done back then. It was a huge cost. So to do it properly is going to cost a lot of money, but you may want to do an overview first and see what the potentials are. But I do agree that it's probably fair to let the new council come in and make that decision rather than us make it for them. But Councillor Thornton, you have your right to reply. No need. So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So item 9 is administration reports. 9.1 is the Goolwa Rowing Club, landowner's consent, and there's a recommendation there with 4 dot points. Sorry? Oh, sorry, Councillor Coomans has a conflict.
Yes, Mayor Parkes, I do have a material conflict of interest in my capacity as a member of the Fleurieu Regional Assessment Panel. So I won't take part in any, I won't be voting. In fact, the door's being put open for me now.
So I gather Councillor Gardner, you wish to move it and speak to it?
I do, thank you. I'm very happy to move this motion. The rowing club is an integral part of Goolwa's sporting prowess, if you like, in our community, and it's hidden away right now on Hindmarsh Island. The only time we see it is when they're out on the river, and it is absolutely beautiful early in the morning when I'm sitting outside Imbus having a coffee to see them puffing away along down the river. This is very important that they get this shed to house their boats, and it's also terribly important that once they've got it, they can actually grow their club. They will have an opportunity to invite schools and young people to enjoy the sport of rowing. And so I would encourage you all to vote for this recommendation that we actually allow them to amend the consent and vary the lease for the club.
So do we have a seconder, Councillor Scott?
This has been going since before I came into council. That's nearly 12 years, so it's probably about 13 years at the rowing club. They get 10 out of 10 for persistence. They've toiled away, they've raised money, and as they've raised money, they've seen everything go up in price. Houses have probably trebled in the time that they've been going, or doubled anyway. So cost of building generally. They need all the support we can give them. I think it's very disappointing that Goolwa, an important town on the river, has not had a rowing club until relatively recently. When you look at Murray Bridge, I think there's 100 years old, and I've often wondered why didn't we have one down here sooner. But they're going now, and on the cusp of actually getting a building, and so I, like Councillor Gardner, urge everybody to support this, and so that they can speed on and get the job done and have a proper home like other sporting groups have. So let's support it. Thank you.
Any further discussion, Councillor Maidment?
Yeah, I'll fully support this motion. It's a no-brainer. The previous development application way back in 2015, they were asked to put a deck out front to appease the community consultation, and they did so. And as we heard tonight, it would cost a lot of money to install that deck. And for the reasons that we've heard tonight, why would you want a deck there anyway when you can launch straight off the grass? So that makes a lot of common sense. It's just unfortunate they have to go through this community engagement process for the second time. This might bring up some more pushback on it, but for my mind, I think, as mentioned previously, we've got to support this.
Any further discussion, Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I am very happy to support this. I think it was an excellent deputation. I think the report was very well presented. It was clear the decision being asked of us and the why for that decision. This is a decision that will reduce risk, increase participation, and I really want to take my hat off to the Goolwa Rowing Club for doing all this fundraising. It's incredible the amount of money that they've raised. They haven't asked for any money. They clearly are a very successful club, and I think we owe it to them not to burden them with a $750,000 increase required to their budget for no direct benefit. And I hope that the community supports this, and I'm very happy just to support it. And I thank everyone who has come along tonight to give us the why. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No, I just agree. It's been going on for too long. Should have been, unfortunately it was approved and then lapsed. All the approvals lapsed because of the time, because of all the stuff that was going on, all the costs. You go back to the fundraising, their members, and I remember like ants on the side of a hill, planting trees during the Millennium Drought through the CLIM program. Now, they raised a lot of money doing that, but they're out there in the cold and the rain. I don't know if any of you have been out planting trees for nature conservation. It's not very easy work, doesn't do your back much good. It's just hard work, and they really deserve it. Where the rowing clubs proposed to go, there used to be a great big paddle wheeler there, right in the way, same spot on the end of that spit. So the impact on people's amenity as far as a view of the river is less with the rowing club. And the design of the building of the rowing club is also designed to be a low impact design. The rowing boats need to be put into racks for storage. So you take the average person at just under 6 foot, stretch their arms out, that's as high as they can reach to put a rowing boat in a rack. The shed doesn't need to be any higher. So that's what was looked at in the past. So I give them, I agree with everything you said, that they deserve, it's a thing we deserve to do. We've got the oldest rowing club in Australia just down the road. Nobody complains about it. They're really proud to have it there. It's a great facility, and this is another option. It's what we're all about, the river and the boats. So, who moved it? Councillor Gardner, do you wish to sum up? So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.2 is the Goolwa Wharf one-way traffic flow community engagement results. There are recommendations group A, B and C. Councillor Coombs, sorry. So 9.2 is the Goolwa Wharf one-way traffic flow community engagement results. There's a recommendation A, B and C. We can either move them all at one, or we can move them individually, whichever we prefer. It comes out the same result. Is there a mover for anything on? Councillor Miller?
I'll move Group A, Your Worship. Thank you.
Do it. A. No. Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Is any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Sorry, I did just want to say the title of this report does make it hard to, if you're going back looking for the decision making around the vehicle parking in Hutchinson Street. That's all I just wanted to say. It's, yeah.
So is there any further discussion? We're talking about Group A at the moment. If not, I'll put it to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Then we go to Group B and C. We can do B or C or both. Which would you like to do? Councillor Livingston. B. Who wishes to speak to it? Is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Just very briefly, Your Worship, I think I landed with doing nothing. That was the option that I could see was really the only obvious answer here. I did want to just comment on one, reading through all of the feedback, which I do want to thank all of the people who responded, and they all did give really good feedback. But there was a mention about parking at the Goolwa Oval as a community space, and I wonder if that is perhaps an option that could be explored at some time in the future, even for a charge like they do down at Langon Creek in the park, just as a fundraiser for the clubs that are there. Better signage, those sorts of things you could do at a minimal cost to try and mitigate some of the risks and angst that seems to be, you know, there was a little bit of that. And, you know, there's beautiful toilets at the Oval. I think there could be some opportunities there. So I thought whoever made that, I can't remember now, was a great suggestion. I think there's an opportunity in the short term maybe for the area immediately adjacent Customs House to do some parking, maybe long vehicle parking in there whilst we're considering what happens there. And I think, you know, any option that's down there would require policing, so I just think keep the status quo. Thank you.
So is any further discussion? I'll just say on Group B, I've got my own opinions about this. I've been trying to dig out the consultation papers on the Goolwa Wharf project, which had the traffic flow in it, and the traffic flow was not what was proposed. So if you went with the traffic flow that was proposed at the time we got the grant for the wharf, Cutting Road was still a one-way road, but there were one-way and two-way roads within the precinct, but there are 3 points you can enter Hay Street, and a further point you enter Oliver Street. There's not just one way out, there are multiples. So anyway, that's what I think. I think we spend all, you know, I said to Andrew, we spent money back then with consultants doing traffic studies and designing it, and then we go and do it again. So I mean, yeah. Anyway, so I just have a strong feeling about it, that's all. So there's no further discussion. I'll put it to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So now we go to recommendation Group C. You can move that, Councillor Scott.
I'd like to move that we do not approve the installation of long vehicle parking bays Hutchison Street. I've been doing a bit of looking around at this recently and lead up to this meeting, and I think it's inappropriate to have long vehicle parking right there. Some of the feedback was quite relevant about sight lines and that sort of thing. And what will happen is that you'll get people that won't park far enough up, and the one will be down, will blouse over the line and block people coming out by Foodland at the moment. And when they take off, they're taking off into a roundabout. As well as we've got a childcare centre over the road where people are parking to attend to that. I think we should be making Coddington Street the long vehicle parking area. It's close to the whole width of the shopping centre. It'll be even closer to Foodland when Foodland's rebuilt. People can enter it from Kingdon Place. They can go up and turn left at the roundabout if they're heading out, round into Beach Road. There's a spot in Beach Road where you could have a long park, and then they turn left into Kingdon and then left into Coddington, and there are several spots. I think you could have about 3, I worked out, in Coddington. And that would save having the potential for that area opposite the childcare centre, outside the edge of Foodland, being cluttered up with very long, bearing in mind some of these caravans combination are getting very big, and so that's why I'm moving against it. And I would like to add, if possible, that the alternative sites in Coddington Street be created. Coddington Street and Beach Road be created in its place. I think you'll get more people in and more vehicles in, the potential for more vehicles, and it'll be less intrusive.
What you're suggesting, we have to go back to the community with the alternate? ask people what they think. So we have to ask them again. There's an alternative. Is there a seconder for the original as it is? Sorry. So you can explore the alternative options, and I'll highlight them. Am I talking to myself, Councillor Scott? Hey. Well, I'm waiting for an answer.
Well, can we identify those options then and say the alternative options in Coddington Street and Beach Road? Yeah. I mean, Coddington Street in the feedback was mentioned on several occasions by those that responded.
That's there. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Maidment.
One thing in all of this which hasn't been considered is that although those proposed bays were on the southern side adjacent the Foodland car park, you're not accommodating anyone with a caravan or a long vehicle coming from Victor Harbour or Port Elliot Way. They will just go straight past that, whereas if they can turn down Coddington or the roundabout, they've got some opportunity to park alongside and do their shopping. So you're only if you have it on the south side where it's proposed, you're only capturing people that are coming from the Goolwa township and passing through to Port Elliot, Victor Harbour. So there's a missed opportunity there. So I wouldn't agree to those two sites on Hutchinson Street. That's going to get busier as the years roll on, and the supermarket redevelopment, we haven't seen what's there, and that's going to be busier. But at least with a turnaround at the roundabout, you won't have too many people getting stuck.
Any Councillor Oliver?
I wonder if there might be, and I don't know of any off the top of my head, but there might be other options. So I wonder if we can insert the word including after the word options. Alternative options including in Coddington Street and Beach Road. For example, next to Customs House may well be available.
The move and seconder. Yeah, so Councillor Maidment, you happy? Let's have a look who I've got here. Councillor Miller, you happy with that variation? No, I'm looking, I'm trying to find one all over the place. Councillor Scott, you've moved it, so Councillor Miller, you seconded it. You happy with that change? No, shit. Pardon me? No, all right, you are happy with that, that's okay. So that's okay. So, yep, that's fine. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller, I'll leave the meeting to include that variation. Yeah, so we're going to include the variation. Your whole 8 need to put your hand up. Yes or no, if you're in favour. Those in favour, will you please raise your hand? We're just accepting the variation at this stage, not voting on it. Yes, you have. So variations granted. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I think Councillor Maidment and I both have grey hair and glasses, so it's easy to get us confused. I do support this. I'm glad that we're not just going to limit to Coddington Street, because I think the consultation did identify some other possible alternatives, so I'm very comfortable with the changes and very happy to support it in its present form. Thanks.
Any further? Councillor Gardner?
I don't like Coddington Street at all. It's a narrow street. I ride my bike down Coddington Street and it is not wide at all, and I cannot imagine a big rig being parked on Coddington Street. I'd be over the other side of the road. Dangerous. I do not like the idea of long vehicles on Hutchinson Street. I have no idea where the best place for long rigs is, probably in Victor Harbour. So I'm not going to vote for this because I don't like the idea of long rigs being on our main road, and I don't like the idea of having them being parked in our narrow road.
Any further discussion? No, so Councillor Scott, you're the mover, do you wish to provide a reply? So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. So 9.3, anybody got? No. Is the Friends of the Oscar W. Lease variation. Community engagement outcomes. There's a recommendation group A and B, and we can do them together or individually. Councillor Coomans.
Oh, look, I'm happy to move both A and B. So we receive and note those two documents and then move on to the actual deed of variation. So I'm very happy to move that. The current leases for the Riverboat Centre and the mooring licence for the Oscar W is in place until June 2029, and the proposal is to then renew these for another 5 years, which would take it to 2034. So if approved, it means that the 4 leases, being the PS Oscar W, the Riverboat Centre, the mooring lease and the Woodyard lease, would all exist together with a common commencement, expiry and renewal date, where each is really linked together in any case. So I guess Council went to public consultation on the Riverboat Centre and the mooring leases, and I think the response we got, the community have spoken loud and clear. 140 responses, 96% supported the Riverboat extended lease, and the report provides great examples of very positive comments that were received as part of that. 97% of responses supported the mooring lease extension, and even the Department of Environment and Water, as owners of the lands, commented that the uses are in line with recreation and tourist purposes. So I guess I just take this opportunity again of congratulating the Oscar W volunteers for their ongoing efforts in looking after Council's paddle steamer vessel and encouraging tourism for our region. The amount of blood, sweat and tears they've injected is very impressive in terms of the Riverboat Centre and also the boat itself. The community have shown how much passionate work of these volunteers has brought to the Goolwa Wharf and appreciate it very much. So I'm very happy to move this, both of them.
We have a seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendation to all those in favour. Against? It's carried unanimously. Councillor Coomans, 9.4, you got a conflict? So 9.4 is the Strategic Land Program Group 1, the Strathalbyn redevelopment road closure. And again, we got a recommendation with A, B and C, but again, you can do them either all together or just one at a time. Councillor Scott, what are you doing?
I was prepared to move the whole lot, A, B and C.
And are you speaking to it?
No, I think it's self-explanatory, it's a procedural thing, and I support the concept.
Seconder, Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, I'll speak to it briefly. This is one of those fortuitous things where the owners of the land submitted a development application back in the 80s. It lapsed. There was some roads created, and they've dropped into council's lap now. And to reverse that process, there's an agreement for transfer at a disposal price, which obviously will help our bottom line. So why would you not agree with this? Because the new proponents that are looking to create a lifestyle village on that site can't do so without those roads in place. So they just want to rejig the whole site.
Any further discussion? No. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. We get to get Councillor Coombs back. Thanks, Alan.
Just declare my conflict, Your Worship, and go.
So 9.5 is the Southern Hills Local Government Association. It's the Audit Committee application for an exemption, and there's a recommendation there before you. Nothing, sorry, nothing. Lachlan, anything you need to add to that? No, sorry. Yep. Take back to Matt, Councillor Scott. Seconder, Councillor Maiden. Any discussion? It's a procedural thing that we do. They have to do it every year when the audit comes up, because they get an exemption through the minister, not to have to go through that, not to have to spend thousands of dollars. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. If we can get Councillor Miller back. So 9.6 is the policy review for the caretaker policy. Lachlan, anything? No. So there's a recommendation there with 4 points. Move, Councillor Maidment. Speak. No.
Just that it's a procedural matter and it's fairly self-explanatory. So.
We have a seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Your Worship, whilst it is procedural, I don't think it's quite that straightforward. And I'll be voting against this only because I would like to see a little bit more consideration given to council hosting a public meeting for candidates, and I am not prepared to rule that out. It would have been nice to have had some, perhaps that specific legislative change and the implications of it dealt with separately for debate, and happy with everything else that's in the caretaker policy, but just that 4B, I'm thinking I think there is a role for council. The legislation was designed that way to make us turn our minds to it carefully and to just treat it procedurally at this point, I'm not comfortable with. So happy with everything else, but just not that bit.
Mr. Scott.
Just a question at this stage. Can we make a variation to number 3 in relation to the public meeting? I too, like Councillor Miller, am not entirely comfortable with the idea of there not being a public meeting, but I can understand perhaps why council's opted out of it. But what I'd like to see in there is that there's provision for public meetings, but to be run by community organisations. I think it's not healthy to have those sorts of meetings, as we saw in the state election, where they're actually instigated by a person that's standing for one of the positions. Even though the nights were run, I think, quite well, the ones that I went to, but the principle that where, you know, the Mount Compass Community Organisation or the Port Elliot Town and Foreshore or Middleton Community Association host the said public meeting, rather than it being organised by someone that's standing for council. And I think that there is quite that's where I sort of would be a lot more comfortable if we could somehow build in that that the holding of the public meeting be auspiced by a community organisation.
We're no longer asking a question, we're now talking to it.
Well, I'm moving into a motion, into a suggested alteration to the motion.
That's exactly right. So, can we clarify what you're trying to... And Lachlan may need to comment on it.
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Scott. I think I'm getting the drift of what you're suggesting. But I think there's really only two options for council. Either you run the public meetings or you don't run the public meetings. Council can't mandate that others run public meetings, although as what's set out in the report is if, for example, council wanted to show support for public meetings being run for candidate forums, which were taking place in council venues, then an application to waive the hire fee for the venue could be considered by the CEO. But really, it's either you're in or you're out. There is no other option.
Not even with a recommendation. Not even with a recommendation.
Sorry, recommendation to what?
We're not. This is saying we're not going to be responsible for holding a public meeting. It's the council's election. Therefore, surely they should have some influence over how the lead up to that election is managed, and that's what I'm suggesting, that they whether it's authorise or whatever, or recommend that any meetings that are held are organised by community organisations rather than individual candidates.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Again, my answer is the same. If council decides it's not going to do it, it has no ability to dictate to others who will or won't run a meeting. But more broadly, the council is very involved in the three stages of the enrol, the nominate and the vote in terms of providing information and advice and assistance to people. But if we're out of the public meeting space, then we can't dictate to others what they will or won't do or who will run them or not.
Thank you, you've clarified it.
That's Oliver.
I'd just like to say I think that it should be run similar to last time, with council initiating and facilitating the meetings. It was very transparent, operated very efficiently. It was in council premises and coordinated across the geography.
Councillor Crimmins, yep.
Thanks, Mayor Parkes. There is certainly a role for council to play in the council elections. I don't think it ought to be organising the functions, what do we call them, member candidate forums. I don't think that's necessary, but one thing that council did do in the state election was to provide the facilities at no cost. And I think if there's going to be a candidates forum, I would like to see it run by independent groups. I think they did a good job. I'm patting myself on the back in a way because I emceed 8 of them, but I'm not sure I'll be doing that for council. But the main thing was that there's costs involved in Centenary Hall, and the CEO made a very good decision in not charging for the use of that. And the same at Port Elliot, I think the same thing. The Mount Compass War Memorial Community Centre didn't charge for the use of that hall. So that was their contribution towards the election. So I'd probably like to see either something added or I'm not quite sure whether it can be a D or something like that, if that council facilities be provided on a no-fee basis to allow candidate forums to be run by other organisations. Something of that basis. I think that would be very fair. I wouldn't like to see council having to run these things. It's a lot of time, and I think volunteers can do it.
Councillor Maidment, okay with that addition? And Councillor Oliver, that we submit facilities at no charge? Yep. So everybody in favour? A question.
So if the facility, it's a council facility, but it's operated by a community group under a management agreement, are we depriving them of income? They may, I mean, are we directing them, if there's that's all I'm just asking, do we have that? No. I mean, the CEO's got delegation to waive fees.
We can't direct community organisations.
No, so I'm just concerned that there are existing management agreements for council facilities. I just want to be, I think it needs to be council managed facilities. I don't want to be directing or depriving community groups of income. And just one other question, if I may. Just because we hold a session or don't hold a session doesn't stop anyone else from doing whatever they want and coordinating anything they want. We just have to decide whether we want to do one or not. And I had another question, but it's escaped me, so I'll just let it go.
Any further discussion? Yes. Yeah. Councillor Scott, you've already spoken to it.
I know, it's sort of like a point of order.
But you've already spoken to it.
I appreciate that.
I'm glad you do, because you're not talking to it again.
I can't hear you, sorry.
You're not speaking to it twice.
No, I'm calling a point of order.
What's the point of order?
Councillor Coomans said at the end of his, with the thing that he amended, that to allow candidate forums to be held by community groups. And I think that's the important thing we need to put in there. And he said that, and
it's not a point of order. It's just something missing in the type out. That's all. Type up. That's all. To be held by community groups.
He's already spoken. You need.
Maybe we add at the discretion of the CEO as well.
You happy with that? Okay, we had that in there before. Yep. Going to change it again. All right. Okay. So, Councillor Maidment, you happy with that? Councillor Oliver? Yep. So, all in favour? That's okay. That's done. Thank you. So that's in there. So now, is there any further discussion? Councillor Maidment, you'll close the discussion.
Yeah, I don't mind closing the discussion.
Excuse me, you'll close the discussion?
Fine.
Well, it may not be, maybe I wish to speak.
I think you asked him to close the discussion.
No, I didn't. No, he put his hand up and I said, no, you'll close the discussion. So, I think you should give credit to, we're very fortunate in the last couple of years, we've received some good, really well run community organisations that are interested in what this council is doing. And they're capable of running these events in either Strathalbyn, here, Port Elliot, Middleton, Mount Compass, no problem at all. They're very capable of doing it, and there'll be no sign of, no inference of any bias or interference by council in the process. So it's very appropriate, very clean, and a very professional way to do it, and we should give the people the credit and let them do it. So now you can close the discussion if you wish.
Your summation was exactly what I was going to say, and I'm pleased that part 5 has been introduced, because as the original motion stood, I would have been against council facilitating these particular forums, because there's obviously a huge cost when you have setup and staff involved, and with 5 coming into the motion, volunteers will certainly step up and provide the forums as was done at the state election. And I can only refer to the one at Strathalbyn, which was run by the business group, and they did a great job. And and the fees were waived for the Strathalbyn Town Hall. So that's the sort of outcome I'd like to see.
So that ends the discussion. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? All against? Okay, it's carried. 9.7 is the Murray-Darling Association Region 6 Basin Plan submission. There's a recommendation with 2 points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston, do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I'll be quick. I do encourage my colleagues to read the submission, and also encourage anything that comes up that may not be covered by the submission to speak to Councillor Scott or myself, so that we can really set up the next 12 months of advocacy in the plan before the elections, and put that forward to the region for consideration.
I have a seconder, Councillor Scott.
I just want to commend Councillor Livingston, as CEO, Andrew, and I believe Sarah Rose, for what I thought was an outstanding submission, and it was done in a short space of time, and it absolutely, I think, absolutely nailed it without going on and on. And I just want to acknowledge that and express my appreciation on behalf of the community, because we're doing it on behalf of the community, and I think that it was a very good job. I think they're well served.
Any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.8 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. There's a recommendation that Andrew's report for April 2026 be received. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Thornton. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion or any questions of Andrew regarding his report? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.9 is the council resolution register. Anything to? No, sorry. So there's a recommendation there. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Thornton. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.10 is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority, FRWA, Strategic Plan for 2026 to 36. Tash, anything to add or change to that? No. So there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Move Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Scott.
In doing so, I'd just like to add, as you read the plan, it's one of the areas that I think government collectively have turned their back on a bit is the extended producer responsibility. And it was subject of a motion that I moved in my very first term in council, with what I consider to be very little result, even though apparently it went to the federal AGM. Organisations like Fleurieu Waste and of course Adelaide Hills Waste are working absolutely flat out trying to do all the things that they can to reduce landfill and develop the circular economy and all that. But we don't want the rubbish in the first place. And that's where I see a lot of the problem is. We're getting a whole lot of waste that is just a consequence of people buying products. You can't buy a screwdriver without it being on cardboard covered in plastic that you've got to rip apart. Some people with arthritic fingers probably couldn't even get them open. And you go to McDonald's and see what some of the stuff that comes out of McDonald's, how quickly their rubbish bin fills. And we should be, the society should be doing more, and government should be doing more about preventing that, so there isn't the imposition on organisations like Fleurieu Waste to go and have to work like mad. Their targets are great. I mean, they're trying to get curbside diversions reduced by 65%, depot diversions 80%, and emissions down by 15% per household. You know, that is all very, very creditable stuff. But I think that they are being, and we are collectively being let down by government not being decisive enough in providing enough strict guidelines as to what people can do. A screwdriver just needs a hook in it, so the hook's can hook on a rack, not a whole lot of other stuff that we've got to process afterwards. And people think, oh, it's great, it's being recycled, it's circular economy. Well, that's fine, but it doesn't happen without more emissions. It actually takes quite a lot of work to recycle a lot of the stuff that we have to recycle. And if you look at stuff like polystyrene and that sort of thing, that's just a minefield trying to handle polystyrene. Luckily it's diminishing now a bit, but anyway, those are the comments I want to make, and I think it's so hard for organisations like Fleurieu Waste and Adelaide Hills having to try and beat the system and be as lean and as smart as they can when all this stuff is being hurled at them instead of there being a reduction in the first place. So that's just my comment on that. Something needs to change, I believe. Thank you.
Councillor Coomans.
A question, Mayor Parks. Is the CEO of FRWA expected to make a presentation to Council in relation to his strategic plan and the budget and business plan?
Through the Mayor, there hasn't been anything scheduled, but there hasn't been an information session scheduled with FRWA to present to Council at this stage.
Is it the intention to do that, so?
Through the Chair, it's not on our forward schedule at the moment, so we're not intending on doing that, but Council can request it.
I just wonder whether it's worth adding an extra point that the CEO of the FRWA be invited to present to Council on the strategic plan and the budget and business plans.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Coomans? Councillor Maidment, you okay with that? Councillor Scott, you okay with that?
Certainly, it was in the
Okay.
notes that he was prepared to do it.
So, all in favour of the variation? Yes, okay. So it's in there. Is there any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.11 is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority FRWA 2026-27 Budget and Business Plan. And there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Andrew, is there anything to change on it? No. Move, Councillor Coomans. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I have 2 questions, Your Worship. The first one relates to the Strathalbyn Waste Recycling Depot. A couple of years ago, there was in the FRWA plan, this is a question, so that I can give you the reason why I'm asking, for an improvement plan for the depot at Strathalbyn. It was removed by a decision of this chamber. So my question is, I see Goolwa, Yankalilla and Kangaroo Island with improvement plans, but I see no mention of Strathalbyn. And I wondered when that might get back on the FRWA plan. And then I've got another question.
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. I get to read this bit out, which I haven't had to read before, which is in accordance with Section 1220, Subsection 4 Local Government Act. Must advise that I have a conflict of interest in relation to being a FRWA board member, a position to which I was appointed by resolution of council. The conflict of interest has been disclosed in accordance with the applicable provisions for staff, and the CEO has determined that I may continue to act in relation to dealings with FRWA that are inherent in my role as General Manager Infrastructure. So to answer the question, I am aware that that piece of work is being carried forward into the next financial year. It was not undertaken completely in the previous financial year. So it is a project that's still live, yes.
Sorry, Your Worship, just to be clear, so it's going to happen this financial year, even though it's not listed in their annual business plan, it's carried forward. So which year will it be in?
Through the Mayor, as I understand it, and to be clear, this is about the concept design of improvements to that site is being carried forward into 26-27.
So my other question was, Council's exposure in the event something goes pear-shaped with this authority, I'm not sure, is there a provision in our financial statements in the event that were to happen, is my question.
Through the Mayor, the equity accounting that we do as part of standard business, yes, there is a provision.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.12 is the quarterly performance report, Quarter 3, 2025-26. There's a recommendation that we receive and note it. Move, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Coomans. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I really appreciate this report and the content of it and the quality of it. My question is, in future, it would be great if we could have the Audit and Risk Committee recommendations relating to this first, because I know they didn't say much at their meeting, but I think it helps for context to have the benefit of the committee's recommendation and then this quarterly report. But I think it's a great report. We haven't got much time left in the financial year, so there's a lot that's probably going to happen in the next 3 months. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. (9.13) is the proposed fees and charges for 2026-27. Andrew, anything to add to that? Comment on that?
Through the chair, probably just to add that at the previous workshop there was a comment or a discussion around the fees and charges for the Strathalbyn pool. You'll note in the report in front of you those fees and charges are as they were at that workshop. In conversations with the manager of that area, it was advised that YMCA believe they're losing quite a few attendances to the Mount Barker swimming pool. So with that in mind, it was recommended to perhaps leave them alone for this coming year in an effort not to discourage people from using our local pool.
There's a recommendation there that we receive a note. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner. Seconder. Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Councillor Scott.
Right, I think I raised this last year, but I noticed that there is a fee for busking, and I'm really against a fee for busking. I think we're targeting the wrong people, and there are not many of them, so it's not taking up a lot of staff time. Busking adds a certain amount of colour to a Saturday morning, and we've had a couple around the area relatively recently. I think on private property, so probably they haven't had to get a licence or whatever it is. But when you think they've got to pay $16, you get a young person. It's a great opportunity for a young person to get some experience in playing in front of the public and getting over all those inhibitions of you know, as one has when you're young. They'd probably, like if they got $10 thrown in their guitar case, why would they bother to pay $16 for a licence? You know, if there has to be something, just charge $1. But I'd say it should be free, but they have to be registered. We don't want them just turning up and with their own orchestra. They need to be registered, but I think we're sending the wrong message if we go and expect young people to pay $16 to play on a Saturday morning. I think it's disappointing. I'd like to see it removed from the fees and charges.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Against? It's carried. 9.14 is the draft annual community plan 2026-27 and the draft long-term financial plan 2026 to 2036. Andrew, is there anything you or Andrew add to that?
Through the chair, probably just to mention that it was certainly a lot of work in a very short period of time to try and pull this together. The version that's attached is not the full graphical version. We've still got the team sort of working on that, which will be the same content, of course, but with a bit more of the graphical flair, I guess, that will go to consultation, subject to Council's decision tonight.
There's a recommendation there with 5 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver, you're moving it. Want to speak to it?
Yes, please, Mayor, briefly. Well, I'd like to say how far we've come. At the beginning of our term, the financial position and projection of Council was arguably unsustainable, as confirmed by ASCOSA in the report. And our chamber proudly has worked together, and we've had many tough discussions and decisions. And we've held restraint and charted a course for sustainability. Our long-term financial plan now is significantly and materially improved, and our future is now bright and sustainable. These are, however, very tough times for the community. In the face of the current cost of living pressures and the oil shock, we need to continue to do all we can to support the community and minimise any increases. In response, I consider this to be a budget of balance of sustainability and restraint of growth, with the average rate increase lower than the CPI, and I'm absolutely delighted at this result. It's important to note that there are no cuts, service levels and staff numbers are maintained, assets will be maintained 100%. There are, however, few new operating and capital expenditure initiatives. And I'd like to say I think this represents a great opportunity for us to complete our current projects and decrease the carry forwards into the future. I think this is probably as low as we can go without, and I would have liked to have seen, targets for asset sales and a further target for cost reduction through the service level review process. But finally, I'd like to commend the administration for their efforts. It's been a really big, huge job. So I will be supporting the draft annual community plan and budget going out to consultation. However, I will also continue to champion cost reduction. I look forward to listening to the community. Thank you.
The seconder, Scott. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I am going to move an amendment, and it's to add 2.6 and 7, which I did send through yesterday. So I hope that they are there. And what they are is to add, I'm talking here about the community engagement plan. Oh, sorry, they've just gone again.
It's either an amended motion or it's a variation.
No, it's I said amendment, Your Worship.
Right.
I know, I understand.
So you're moving an amendment?
I'm moving an amendment. I'm not changing any of what's been moved, but I am adding 6 and 7. And this is to do with the community engagement plan. I want to include a 5th frequently asked question, being what is the back pocket impact of an average general rate increase of 4.9, 4.5 and 4% for 2026-27 to ratepayers and to the Council's annual budget 2026-27 and long-term financial plan. So it's just adding a question, and the answer will be, I hope, the back pocket impact modelling that I had hoped would be on the screen so I could show everyone what I was trying to refer to. And the financial modelling, there are 2 slides that were in the briefing that we had last Monday. They are really helpful visuals, I think, for our community to really understand what the impact is to them and also what the impact is to council. We've spent 6 Mondays getting to this point, and I think it's invaluable for the community to be able to see, if nothing else, these two slides. And my other point is that I would like to resolve that the useful documents attached section include those 2 slides and also have this agenda item and the minute on the My Say page. So I'm not changing anything that has been presented, I'm just enhancing the community engagement tools to help our community have the commentary that has gone into the last 6 workshops, because I can reiterate what what Councillor Oliver has just said. We have put so much time and effort as an administration in particular, and as council members, listening to what the community's been saying to us, trying to achieve a balance. Councillor Gardner and I were present at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting last week, I think, a week ago, and there was really good discussion there, and the chair did flag that anything less than CPI will impact on our long-term financial plan and our budget. It was in the end resolved to read may impact, but I just want to be able to have honest conversations with the community and demonstrate to the community the work that has been done and the collaboration and the spirit in which it has been done. I'm really pleased to be taking this to the community, but I just think we need to help the community with this visual and with the council report. If they choose to read it or not, that's really up to them. But let's make it easy for the community to see what we have done and why we've done it and what the impact of any decisions around this rate increase or not will be. So I hope that my amendment is supported. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Livingston? Is there any discussion on the amendment? No. So I'll put the amendment. Now, you just got to stay with me because I've moved on. But if you need to speak, you can. So I'll put the amendment to you. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. So the amendment, as motion as amended, will now become the motion. So now I'll put the motion to you. No. You can't speak. Yep, you can.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. It's not often we have an amendment that sort of gets to this level. It's normally a variation or something. I don't have a real issue with the amendment, but I didn't think it was really necessary. But I think firstly I would like to congratulate the CEO and the CFO and the general managers on the amount of work that they have done on this budget and the long-term financial plan. It's been mind-blowing attending the 6 information sessions where the draft budget was shaped and refined to what we have now. I think there may be an opportunity to do better in the coming year in relation to the rate increase without having to change any of the proposed actions or projects. But I support the plan with a 4.5% rate increase going out for public consultation, but we'll be listening very carefully to the comments from the ratepayers, especially in relation to this increase, given that the community is hurting and under serious financial stress. For me, the attendances at the 4 road shows in Goolwa on the 25th of May, Port Elliot on the 1st of June, in Strathalbyn on the 3rd of June and Mount Compass on the 9th of June will be excellent indicators of where the community sits on this. I may have to have more to say at the budget meeting following the consultation period leading up to the special meeting proposed for the 29th of June when we adopt the 2026 annual business plan and budget. I guess there's no more to be said at this stage until we get that feedback from the community, but I'll be listening very carefully. Thank you.
So any further discussion on that? If not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10 is committee reports. 10.1 is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee, the independent chairperson's meeting summary. Tash, anything to add to that? There's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Move, Councillor Gardner.
Yes, please. I would very much like to encourage you to vote in favour of this recommendation. I'm so glad I went to the Audit and Risk Committee last week. I think the relevant things that stood out to me were that this council should be ensuring that we go out to our constituents with a CPI 4.9 and the 0.85 as sustainability. And in fact, when the Audit and Risk Committee voted on this, it was a unanimous vote. Everyone was there and it was unanimous. And And I was really impressed with how people spoke and how the chairperson ran the meeting. It's a good report.
We have a seconder, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just speak very briefly. Yes, the committee was unanimous in understanding what the difference between the 4.9 plus 0.85 and 4.5 was, and now we need to hear from the community. But just to that point, you're probably going to hear throughout this consultation period that there are other councils who are doing less than CPI and considerably less than CPI. What you need to keep in mind, it's my understanding, is that those councils who are doing that have been running surplus budgets for some time and have cash in the bank, and most importantly, have low borrowings. Those don't apply to us, whether we like it or not, and we've been working really, really hard, and I do agree with, I also want to reinforce what Councillor Cooman said about the administration and the CEO, the CFO and the executive, the work that they have done. It has been incredible. But the reality is that 3 years ago, I think it was, we had our assets revalued and we had to take a long-term view, and we still need to take a long-term view. So we need to be honest with our community what the impact of the real impact is, and ensure that we're honest with them and we don't just think year to year to year, because we are in year 3 of decisions that we made 3 years ago, and we need to make sure we honour all that heavy lifting we've done, and more importantly, honour the future years and the decisions and the budgets that are to come. So I was really grateful to attend the Audit and Risk Committee, and I would strongly encourage other council members and members of the community, if they get the opportunity, to attend the Audit and Risk Committee, because you do get an independent arm's length assessment of without the political filter over it. So I think that's really important to note. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 10.2, Councillor, Oliver, you got a conflict on this one?
Yeah, I'd just like to declare a general conflict of interest due to my family business. Thank you.
So 10.2 is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee, the third quarter budget review of 2025-26. Andrew, anything to add to that? No. Is there, so there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that, Councillor Miller? Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Just got to get Peter off. Councillor Oliver back. Thanks. So 10.3 is the report from the Audit and Risk Committee, various financial policies review. Andrew A, all good with that? Thank you. So there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. The mover for that, Councillor Miller. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Yeah. 10.4 is a report from the Climate, Emergency and Environment Advisory Committee, SEAC, various recommendations. Matt, is there anything to clarify on that report today? There's a recommendation group A, A to E. Okay. So we can do them all at once or one at a time. Councillor Miller. Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. It would have been perhaps good to have considered some of these before we adopted the annual business plan, because we've in effect received and noted and actioned a couple of these because they are in the annual business plan, now draft that's going out. But I just wanted to make sure that when we receive and note these committee recommendations, we're not actually being seen to be endorsing these recommendations. And I'm asking that for a number of reasons which I'll cover in my debate, but I just want to double check that receiving and noting does not mean endorsing.
Thanks. Through the chair, absolutely not. I think when we're looking at receiving and noting the recommendations from a committee, it is just that. There's 5 groups within this recommendation. Some of them are to receive a note, others are to consider as part of the budget process. I think there's one there that is during public consultation on the recreation, open space and sports strategy, that be considered as feedback in relation to that. So there's a range of different actions as a result, but none of them are effectively endorsing anything.
So if somebody's happy to move, you can move the whole lot at once, or you can move them one by one. Councillor Livingston.
I'm happy to move them one by one, because there is receiving and noting, then there's also requesting action be taken. So I'll move Group A. And just wanted to also provide a bit of extra background to this and the recommendations that came from the committee, which was really around the tree strategy and trying to partner with community more to achieve the outcomes, as opposed to relying on the budget to get there, which is very unlikely. So that's essentially what the committee were trying to achieve here.
So we're talking about Group A. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Just a question, Your Worship. When will we see this township greening strategy? Because this is the second year in a row that we have adopted actions falling out of that strategy in our annual business plan, yet we actually haven't adopted the strategy yet. So I'm just keen to understand when we will actually be adopting the strategy. I'm supportive of what's proposed in here, but I'm keen to understand what we're doing with the strategy.
Through the chair, we're getting close. The strategy, we'll bring it to a workshop in the first instance, which I think we've got penciled in July. And then hot on the heels of that, there'll be a report to endorse the strategy.
Is there any further discussion on Group A? If not, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So we go to Group B. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. Just brief again, it was really just also engaging with the committee on the budget process, but also there was a discussion around if we can't as a chamber commit to, I think it was originally 40,000 in the budget for recycling FOGO programs to be trialled, what can we do? So whilst we haven't suggested anything in particular, one point around that was public and event-based programs, which shouldn't require any cost out of the budget. It's just more of a procedural matter and position of council.
So do we have a seconder for Group B? Councillor Coomans. Is there any discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So we now go to Group C. Is there a mover for Group C? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. This is also a bit of a expansion on the previous discussions about Area Q and the land around that area and the conservation zone. So whilst there's no commitment, it is seeking that further information and whether there is any options for a code amendment.
So is there a seconder for Group C? Councillor Scott.
I think this is actually quite important, and I know we're just supposedly receiving and noting, but these reports these recommendations are made in good faith, and I guess in the expectation they'll be duly considered by council. And partly, I think that this has been born out of before the last election, there was a bit of a plan floating around that showed potential for a lot more subdivision along the south coast, and which surprised some people because it sort of surfaced. And this motion really, if we can follow that through and it achieves the outcome that's suggested, it will tend to preserve the coast as I understand it. And so therefore it is important, and because in spite of all the change that's going on, I think we all deep down hope that we can preserve some of the south coast as we've remembered it and as it is, so it just doesn't get, the houses don't go up over the hills and like's happened around in Counter Bay.
Any further discussion? A question? Yep.
I just want to clarify with this, if I may, my understanding is that this is a request as opposed to a note and receive on this recommendation.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. This would require us to go out, have some discussions with the City of Victor Harbor and District Council of Yankalilla, and then also report back on the process that would be associated with the code amendment.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Very briefly, I'm happy to support this. It's just calling for a report. I think in addition to the code amendment, it would the scope I'd like to see include any cost sharing arrangement. You know, we're initiating this, so I'm assuming we'll be doing the leading of it, which will be another impost on our resourcing, but I'm happy to support it. I just want to note it is incredibly important because the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan, this will create tension with the objectives of that and what we're trying to achieve here. And I think that's something we need to be mindful of and get ahead of the curve on. So I'm happy to support something like this being requested. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation to all those in favour. Against, it's carried unanimously. We go to recommendation Group D. Is there a mover for recommendation Group D? Move Councillor Scott. Seconder? Councillor Livingston. Any discussion?
I'd just like to add that...
Well, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
If you speak now, you'll close the discussion, so let's wait to see if anybody else wants to. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Just very quickly, that this is about establishing and maintaining a public register of trees and mature shrubs on public land. It's separate but related to also the work that's going to happen with establishing the the roadside vegetation outside of townships, and I hope that that will continue to be prioritised. I think that the public register is really a good idea. They are green assets and they have a value, which we heard earlier in the deputation, so I'm happy to support this. I don't think it would be something easy to do, but this is a register of trees and shrubs that are removed or destroyed. But I'm not sure the balance of that is, do we have a register of trees on public land, or we're just going to keep track of what disappears? I wasn't quite sure on what this meant, that's all.
Any further discussion? Pardon?
I asked a question to clarification, if this is about, we're just going to have a register of trees that we've removed.
Thank you, through the chair. You're correct, this is a register of trees that are being removed. The intent is for there to be some record of any trees that are removed from public land and any of the associated resources that come along with that, so that we can keep a general record of that occurring. There is a separate project to look at a register of trees of significance, not significant trees, but within our area, and that's a piece of work that we're also working on separately.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this, and the intent as well from the committee was that there was a level of transparency and access to information on an ongoing basis, so that it's not a question that is brought up and then it has to be sourced, that it's a publicly available document which any member of the community can access at any time.
Is any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Scott, if you don't put your hand up, how do I know you wish to speak? You did not put your hand up. And then you look at me as though I'm ignoring you. I can't guess. If you wish to speak, you have to let me know.
Normally, at the end, you told me I couldn't speak before, and I realised I left a pause between the motion and the thing. What you normally do is you call to the person that moved it do you have your right of reply? And I was waiting for you to say that without me jumping in and talking. And you didn't say, do you want your right of reply?
No, I didn't. I asked if anybody else wished to speak to it, and you put your hand up to speak to it. And I said, if you speak to it, you'll close the debate.
Yes.
Because you had moved it.
That's right.
And we hadn't finished with people talking to it. So you don't get your right of reply until everybody has finished.
That's right.
Yeah, so if you wish to have your right of reply now, you could have, it's not automatic, you have to ask for it, so you could put your hand up. I asked if there's any more discussion, and you didn't tell me, so please speak. If you want to do a right of reply, let me know.
Yeah. Oh well, it's all pretty well over now anyway. But it's largely, I think, also driven. The committee was pretty disgusted with the amount of deliberate poisoning of trees in the district, and the trees being pulled out and moved, and this register will note what trees have been damaged and killed and withdrawn, and so we can at least have a log of what it is and how much council spent on doing it and getting nowhere. So that was a reason.
Ends the discussion. I'll put the recommendation group D to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. We do recommendation group E to receive a note. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. The additional context I just wanted to add in here is the intent also from the committee was that we were drawing on information and work that administration have already undertaken, as opposed to requesting further work in this space. And we do think that the information and data that we have will be really beneficial for the coming year and following to try and get our canopy targets.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion? Councillor Scott.
This is quite a novel idea. I think that any areas that are not being used for sport and recreation, let's put trees on them. and I think it's a great idea, and I hope everybody supports it.
Any further discussion, Councillor Livingston? We'll close the debate. Anybody else wish to speak? No, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. And just quickly, just to sum up all of the recommendations put forward, this is, I know that we as a group went through quite a frustrating time of going through the governance model and working out the composition of the committee, but this really does highlight what expertise we do have in that room by way of administration and community members. So I think that we will be able to continue to provide recommendations to council and also advice where required.
So that ends the discussion. I'll put recommendation group E to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Go to 10.5, which is a report from the Agricultural Advisory Group, an extension of term. Stacey, anything to change on that? No. So there's a recommendation there before you. Move, Councillor Miller. Second to Councillor Gardner. Is any discussion? Not. Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Council member reports. 11.1 is presiding members' reports. My report for April 2026. Andrew, is anything on? No. So there's a recommendation that that report be received and noted. Move, Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion or questions relating to my report? Not a very big one this time. No, so I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 11.2 is Council Member Activity Report. We have a report from Councillor Gardner. Anything you wish to add to that, your report, Councillor Gardner? No. There's a recommendation that report from Councillor Gardner for April 26 be received. Moved, Councillor Miller. Seconded, Councillor Maidment. Any questions or discussion? If not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 11.3 is Council Member Activity Report and verbal updates. Are there any verbal updates on things you have done on behalf of Council in your role as Councillor? Scott.
I just want to acknowledge two events that I've been to in the last week or so. One was Cemetery Open Day, a tour of the Currency Creek Cemetery, and the other was the awards, the Heritage Awards night at Hope Forest. And just highlight, they're both events where there was collaboration between our staff, the committees and the volunteers and local people, and particularly in Hope Forest it was I thought a great result there, and the same with the cemetery. Staff support, it just shows that when we all collaborate, what we can achieve. And there were a lot of comments about Hope Forest, and we had numerous comments about the cemetery and the fact that the staff, both before and after the event, just did that extra to quickly help us and make it all happen. So I'm terribly appreciative of it, but I think it's worthy of mention because collaboration is the key word. Thank you.
Are there any other reports or updates? No, there's a recommendation there that they be received and are noted. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston. Second, Councillor Gardner. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 12 is confidential items. There are none.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.